Today we're on site in Banbury for the excavation that's taking place over the last few months. The excavation is on behalf of Orbit Homes prior to planning and building consent.
So at the beginning of each development we have an archaeology test dig to check to see if there's anything on the development itself, and through that test dig we managed to find certain artefacts which then expand the area that we're checking, and through doing that we found numerous artefacts of significance, which meant that we continued to dig until we found everything that we could find on the site.
As part of an excavation we generally find quite a lot of finds, and anything that's particularly significant is classed as a small find, and we've been fortunate enough on this site to have recovered quite a lot of small finds.
The story of human presence in the site begins sometime after the 4th century before Christ. You can see behind me actually the center of a middle to late Iron Age settlement, which was consisting of big enclosures, probably as pens for animals, and we have found actually 5 to 6 curvilinear features indicating roundhouses. After that, life goes on in a way. The site, we have the Roman presence, as we have found a few coins and Roman pottery indicate this period of time. And after that, we have in continuation, but in different use of the site as a burial site this time. So we changed from a habitation settlement to a burial site in the Anglo-Saxon period. We have found 37 burials.
It's been an incredibly interesting experience excavating them because there's been such a wide variety of ages and sexes and burial placements and so many different grave goods with them.
The grave goods are astounding, just in their volume and their style. There's so many different types of material within the assemblage. We've got glass beads, we've got metal work, we've got some pottery. It's just a really remarkable assemblage to have on one site, so we're very fortunate to be able to do what we do.
When I was excavating one of these skeletons, a gold bracteate came up. It's a gold pendant from the Anglo-Saxon period, and it was just so amazingly well preserved. You can still see all of the Type II animal designs on them, which was a pagan design, like pre-Christian, and the amazing thing is not far from it. There was a child burial that had a gold cross pendant. So you get both sides of the religious spectrum, which is incredible, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime find.
Surprising, to me I would say surprising in a nice way, is like this continuity we have in human presence of the site for about 2,000 years. This is surprising to me, to see that's a continuous occupation or even use of the site throughout all these years.
I think the potential of the site is to show people were here over a very long period of time doing different things at different times, and the Saxon cemetery should really be studied in detail, and that information should be open to everyone, because it's not every day you find such lovely material, and it's just a really important part for Banbury's own history.
It's really important for us as a developer to make sure that we invest in our community and we provide information of our history, and we get the golden opportunity when we actually develop a development and we actually start excavating, that if we find artefacts that we can preserve those and actually pass those back to the local community so that they can understand the history that wouldn't normally have been able to have been found without us actually developing.
This is a once-in-a-decade site kind of thing. With once-in-a-lifetime kinds of finds that are coming up. It's incredible.
From my last spoke on site, the finds have all come back to the Milton Keynes unit, and they go through a stage called post-excavation.
After we finished the excavation, we're trying to gather all the necessary information in order to create the story of our site. Of course, we're still in a preliminary stage, but still we have some ideas of what is, how this settlement was founded and what was happening on the top of the hill.
It does take time. You cannot rush. And for the sheer volume, we've had nearly 23,000 listed artefacts. That does include multiple pieces of human skeleton bone and multiple pieces of fragments of things, but in total about 23,000 countable items. So they all have to be cleaned and catalogued, packaged and stabilised and looked at and reported on and photographed, and that takes time. We've been so lucky at Calthorpe Gardens. We've been totally spoiled with the finds that have been recovered. Predominantly, they belong to the Anglo-Saxon burials. We've also had some Iron Age. We've had some very early material from the Mesolithic. We've had some flint tools. So that just adds to the story about the human occupation and presence on that site over the many thousands of years. So we've laid out a selection of finds for you to look at today. So here we have an Iron Age weaving comb, which I think is gorgeous. This would have been used as part of a loom and weaving process. As you can see, it has a line of ring and dot motifs engraved and 2 linear bands just above the teeth. We don't quite know what these represent, whether it's purely decoration or if it has other meanings, but hopefully further research can help tell us more about that. So we'll move on to the Anglo-Saxon finds now. The top one is a bone purse ring, and below that is a bone comb. Bone ring and the bone comb came from one female inhumation, and the bone ring is sometimes referred to as a purse ring. So it would have been the opening of a fabric bag worn suspended from the waist. We also have this very fragmented but very beautiful bone comb, and it would have been about that long. And it has teeth on both sides running the length of it. Again, it just gives an insight into what people thought were important. So clearly at Calthorpe Gardens, they liked their appearance, so they would have taken great care on how they looked. Yeah. This object at the front is a beautiful pendant that we believe is gold or gold plated. This came from an adult male burial, and once we have the full analysis, we'll be able to tell more about the intertwined serpent detail that's there, but very pretty find.
In total, we had 52 skeletons that were excavated from Calthorpe in Banbury, and we have 2 of them laid out here. So we have a child that was aged about 6 or 7 when they died, and we have an adult male, so he would have been in his 30s or 40s when he died. So the child, we can age children really accurately because we can measure the lengths of the long bones, and we look at the eruption of the dentition, and we know a lot about this, so it's very easy to age children. You can also note on this child's teeth, he's got quite worn teeth, which is quite typical for Anglo-Saxon times because of the way they were processing grain, and little bits of stone are becoming incorporated into flour as they're making the flour. And you can see they have a mixture of their permanent dentition, so adult dentition, and also their children's teeth or their baby teeth. So you can see some of the baby teeth are quite worn. The dentine is appearing through, and these teeth will be lost, and then you can see in the crypts that the adult teeth will come up and they'll replace them.
So they lost their teeth at a similar age then?
Absolutely, they lost at exactly the same age as children these days. There's also some evidence for infection in this child's legs, so that's called periostitis. We can't say what would have caused that, but we know that that's something that may have been implicated in their death. So if they would have had an active infection leading up to the time that they died. So this man would have been aged in his 30s or 40s when he died. He's an adult male. He would have been about 5'9" whilst alive. You can see how long and robust His arms, especially particularly his arms, his muscles are very defined, so he's been a very strong individual. And there's evidence for a slip disc in his spine, so particularly he might have had a strenuous life, doing lots of physical activity, lots of lifting, agricultural activities as well. He has a small fracture in his foot, which is linked to overuse of the feet from either running or walking long distances. And also in his teeth, as we noticed with the child, his teeth are very worn down, which is really typical for an Anglo-Saxon of his time.
Archaeology in itself is exciting, but when you get to cover so many time periods in the one site, it is just such a joy to do. The local area was very rich in archaeology, and the area in particular on top of that hill has been a focal point since the Mesolithic and possibly even before that. So people have been attracted to that location for a number of different reasons, and we're just seeing the glimpses of the people that have left their mark there.